Sumerian based. So much. Oh, that's cool. Not a. So cool. Yeah, you're pulling out a frame now. Hey, Casso is here. Yo, Casso. Hey. Iceman. Everyone helps.
Mate, I'll have to do an interview sometime.
Sure, man. You can do one with Dan in a minute here.
Oh, I'm not ready. I can't do off the cuff, mate.
Oh, you can do it. It's easy.
Yeah, did the whole crypto for beginners thing in the UK.
Yeah.
So I only started in May, but just trying to get exposure on there. Just get some genuine good content and support out there, you know, for people.
Yeah, man. It's really difficult to know what to do.
We're fighting. My competition is government banks, you know, HSBC.
Oh, yeah.
Their intern programs are selling to universities, you know.
Oh, I know. They have so much.
Hey, take £100,000 in exchange for this crappy degree, and you're going to work at Starbucks, and then you can crash the financial system.
That's the way, man.
At least you get to clog Twitter with gender stands.
Yeah, it's ironic, not giving away free Ethereum. I follow you guys on Twitter and like what's his face, Jameson Locke as well.
Oh yeah, he's cool.
Is he into crypto?
He said something good about Zcash like a few years ago, and everyone said like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah, but all governments and banks using Zcash. It's not Monero, and it's certainly not a big cash on Wimble. Yeah.
All right.
Where did that go?
Still a thing. They're grinning all over the place.
Public address is your IP address. Your WAN is public facing IP.
Yeah.
Private is your 24/7.
All right, you're our next interview. Get ready, because you're coming in to sit next to Dan. No, for real. Like, just you're gonna come in and do it. All right, Dan, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, they're out there. We got one guy, Casso. He's got a space in his name.
It's live.
Oh yeah.
Oh shit. Pardon me.
Yeah. There's no other way to do it these days.
No, just.
So here we are. We're live from Birmingham, England.
BitBrum.
BitBrum. I'm emceeing the conference downstairs. They tell me I have to go introduce the next speaker. I'll try to run up here afterwards, maybe hang out if Dan hasn't found anybody yet. But pretty sure we're going to grab somebody from the room here, send them over to talk to Dan. How's the conference going, Dan?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I think the turnout's good. I like the venue. It's it's a nice little place actually, Birmingham. I was expecting it to be. You hear a lot of things about Birmingham City Centre.
Well, the Peaky Blinders are going to get you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Goodness, I was expecting to have one of those Chelsea smiles by the time I leave here.
That's right. Get you ready. But yeah, we're having a great time here. Whole crew's up here. See if we can get Ben, Mr. Lightning, to come up and join us. He's here somewhere. He's got his Lightning ATM. He's got a new Lightning faucet. You can get some free Satoshis. So you can try out the Lightning network. It sounds very cool. We're having the next speech coming up is from BTC Pay. Not the same as BitPay. It's not your grandfather's payment system. It's very cool. And I'm going to be introducing them in about 30 seconds. Looks like they're taking all the food away, but that's okay. It was pizza full of cheese. I'll survive on Coca-Cola and French fries as per usual.
I've got you stocked, boy.
Yeah, we're well stocked up. We have a whole line of Coca-Colas. That's one way to label them. Perhaps a bushel. There's Ben running away. Very, very supportive. Doesn't look at us. Cool.
Oh, no, he did it. That was very briefly.
Briefly, then he ran. I'll see. Maybe I can get you the organizer of the conference.
Yeah,
that sounds like a good start interview. But I'm going to go introduce some more speakers. And ist Kartoffeln. Die man isst die Kartoffeln. Die man es essen Kartoffeln? Yes, something like that. Working on my German earlier.
Oh, yeah,
It's
yeah.
getting better and better. So, Dan, why don't you talk to the people and I'll go get Joe.
Oh, geez. Right. Hi there, everyone. Oh, goodness, I'm going to have to freestyle this, aren't I? Yeah, so good first day of the only day of BitBrum. Watched an interesting talk earlier from Greg Walker on essentially he was explaining the blockchain. It's something really difficult. If someone says to me, can you explain it like I'm a 5-year-old, I still have troubles now making it concise, especially when you are excited and you've got to concisely explain things. So I'm freestyling and just waiting for Joe, hopefully. Oh, no, wait, we've got Rianne. Here we go. Rianne, how you going? Sweet. Oh, wow. Yay. First interview of the day. Yeah, well, technically, I may have been the first one if Mad Bitcoins was technically interviewing. So, would you like to explain who you are and what you do to the camera, Rianne?
Yeah.
Or cameras?
I'm Rianne. I've been involved in Bitcoin and crypto scene since 2013. I was actually on WCN in 2014 or something.
Yes.
Yeah. Made very rare appearances since. I'm going to do a talk today about government cryptos and corporate cryptos and why they're essentially really bad thing. I do various things in the space. I'm very, very excited about the possibilities of Bitcoin, obviously. Also hold my hands up and confess to being a bit of a shitcoiner.
I like competition. Sorry, Bitcoiners. Sorry, very briefly. Is there like one product, because I was trying to think of this earlier, is there one product in the world where you don't have a competitor?
It's true, right? Yeah.
It's kind of what happens, isn't it, in free markets? And if people want to buy stuff, they want to buy it. So it kind of, I don't know, it seems a bit odd to censor stuff. But obviously, everyone needs to call out scams as they are.
Absolutely. And even if the net effect of having a lot of not Bitcoins is to convince people that Bitcoin is ultimately the best solution, then that's also a good thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, censorship is bad. Products have a right to exist. Obviously, there are so many scams that gave tokens in general a bad name, but it's not to say there aren't worthwhile projects out there.
Well, I think the thing is with that though, if you look at Bitcoin, it's not like there's not a lot of scams in Bitcoin. You know, it's not Bitcoin's fault. It's that people use tools to scam. Like, you know, if there was no fiat and there was no Bitcoin, then people would use goats. They'd be like, I've kidnapped you. Your wife's got to give me 100 goats. Wouldn't they? You know, like, they're going to use something. Be like seashell, I don't know what. But so, what do you think of the Chinese government's their announcement of they're doing a state one?
So this is what I wanted to talk about this afternoon, right? So I thought about doing this talk a while ago, and the Chinese announcement actually came during this time. So the thing that I'm a bit sort of baffled by is the way Bitcoiners kind of go, oh, this government or this company has announced they're doing something with a digital currency or with a blockchain. This is great. It's giving us legitimacy. Well, Bitcoin doesn't need legitimacy.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing. Why should we be concerned about other people thinking that it's a valid solution when it stands or fails on its own merits?
Yeah.
I think we should be incredibly wary of these corporate coins and government digital currencies, because essentially programmable money in the hands of government can be an incredibly dangerous thing. So we've already seen what's happening in Hong Kong. We've already seen what's happening with the social credit system, which is being piloted in China. So if you have a system which is moving towards being cash-free, where the only option is to use programmable money issued by the government, all kinds of controls can be put on that. Freedom of payment is obviously such an important element of freedom in general. That's why we, and presumably everyone who's going to be watching WCN, embraces the whole idea of Bitcoin. So government digital currencies they're like the anti-Bitcoin.
Yeah.
I think it's actually annoyed me a little bit. Everybody was talking about the China bounce because orange coin number go up when the Chinese announcement was made, whether or not that was linked to that. And you could see everybody being really pleased about that, whereas it's a really bad thing.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like, so converting fiat to I see it two different sides. Converting fiat into a cryptocurrency is kind of like putting lipstick on a pig. It's like, you can't polish a turd, like it's a turd. And you're going to take the good part of the turd, which is the cash part, which was the anonymity protecting, and you're going to turn it into a completely traceable government currency. But the benefits of that could be, for example, if the government currency, the transaction fees, replaced all tax. Imagine that. Like, imagine went to I don't know if it's logical or economical, but there's no, you never have any pay any tax, but everyone just pays micro fees. And the micro fee just goes to the government. That's how they dish out all the systems.
Yeah,
And then is it right?
I think that's still a really bad thing, because you're not really going to need transaction fees in a situation where the government's running the servers. We've already got tokenized dollars. If you think about Tether, DAI, whatever, they are tokenized dollars by any other name. The government tokenizing dollars or pounds or euros, it's neither here nor there, except that it will replace cash.
Yeah.
But the worry is when you start having things like government smart contracts. So take, for example, the example of social benefits. Like, lots of people might have a knee-jerk reaction to saying, oh yes, so if people are unemployed, they shouldn't be allowed to spend money on booze or cigarettes or whatever, and they should only have food stamps. So it basically, having programmable money enables governments to target payments like this, so that you can give people cash that is only spendable on particular things. It's really, but you have a lot of people who'd say, oh yes, that's a good thing. We don't want unemployed people to be able to do this. But it's the thin end of the wedge, because then you have government cryptocurrencies where, to inflate the economy, for example, to fight the type of deflation that you have in Japan, they say, well, we're going to airdrop some money to people, but only if they spend it on certain consumer goods, because we've noticed that the sector of the economy where they make overpriced sofas that people buy on credit is suffering. So you can have some money, but it'll expire in so many months if you don't buy a sofa with it.
Do you view that as so that specific scenario, do you view it as a bad thing or a good thing?
It's a really bad thing, because we have this situation at the moment where governments all over the world are just pumping, they're pumping debt into the economies in a completely unsustainable way in order to generate demand that's not there. And basically, that's not the function of government to do things like that. And if they're using tokens to do this, it just makes their job an awful lot easier.
Yeah.
And it just results in even more government control of the economy, even more diversion of resources to things that are inefficient, rather than allowing free markets to do their thing.
Yeah.
When we talk about government cryptocurrencies, it's not like it's going to be like Bitcoin, where there's a defined supply and it's hard money. I think a lot of people make the mistake of thinking, oh, well, if governments embrace digital currencies that are blockchain based, we'll have something that's transparent, that's more like hard money. That's not actually going to happen. we're just going to have exactly the same inflating money supply that we've got now. Only
Just on a blockchain.
exactly.
Ta-da! Lipstick on a pig.
Exactly. Yeah,
Polishing that dirt.
That's my thought anyway. So I wanted to talk about it, and it just so happened that the Chinese announcement happened
Timed
in
well.
between me deciding to do a talk about it.
And what country do you think is going to be the next to say, oh, we're going to dabble in our own country? There's been Venezuela with the petrodollar, China. Do you think there's going to be another one soon?
Well, I think there are an awful lot of people in America now talking about it. Some people don't realize that the Bank of England actually did a pilot study, I think about, it was quite early on, I think it was 2015, 2016. They did, correct myself here, it wasn't an official Bank of England study, it was a study by some academics at UCL, but with the blessing of the Bank of England, talking about the technical aspects of how they could tokenize the pound.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised to see the Americans going for this. We've had the Congress there, and the various committees seem to be really split between people who just don't get it at all. You could see when they were interviewing Mark Zuckerberg that half of them just didn't get it at all. But then you've got some that do, and they're calling for a digital dollar. So I wouldn't be surprised if America went that way.
It does seem like it's a matter of time, because I sort of actually, one of the first shows I watched was in 2013. It was Mad Bitcoins, and I first heard about Bitcoin from a friend who'd spare off the Silk Road. He sold me one, and then I was like, oh wow, I can print this with graphics card. This is amazing. And I went to print's a bad word. I can mine them and earn them via work. But yeah, so I've learned about Bitcoin relatively early on and thought this is a crazy concept. I say, but it's a crazy concept, but I'm not 100% sure about it. And then as soon as I saw like Tom dressed in this funny hat and with psychedelic backgrounds, I was like, sold. That's it. It was amazing. So yeah, I think that the government's meddling in the cryptocurrency sphere, it's going to obviously, I don't think there's going to be many that really say we'll use Bitcoin as our, it's a lovely utopian dream, but I just can't see any countries having the guts to say, hey, we're going to screw this off. And, we've been packing Bitcoin, for example, and we're going to no longer use our currency. And it's a great utopian dream. And I think eventually these things, may pan out, however, 100 years that someone actually does, and a country does change over and use Bitcoin in some way instead of having their own currency. But
well, in a sense, it sort of doesn't matter what governments do, because ultimately people will find their own way of transacting. I think it's quite interesting the way banks, for example, have come almost full circle from the days in 2016 when it was all blockchain, not Bitcoin. And now banks are exploring products which are in some ways tied to the Bitcoin blockchain, whether it's through side chains or assets to digitize that's tokenized using the Bitcoin blockchain. And if enough banks start transacting at that kind of level with Bitcoin linked products, and that becomes a medium of exchange globally, then in a sense, whatever governments are trying to impose is less important.
Yeah.
That's what I think anyway. Yeah. I mean, we'll wait and see. I don't think, obviously the conversation about scalability has moved on quite a lot. Most people now are not expecting all transactions to happen on the Bitcoin blockchain itself. They're expecting transactions to happen on things which operate in different layers above the main Bitcoin blockchain. So let's see what happens. But I do think government coins, government tokens are not the way to go.
No. I mean, I think it's almost like governments see that Bitcoin is a powerful tool because it's censorship resistant. But I think it's going to be it's either going to be, I think it'll be an arms race, essentially. It'll be like the Bitcoin, adopting Bitcoin, not fully into, replacing their currency, but like saying that they're holding it. It'll be people like countries coming out going, oh yeah, we've been packing Bitcoin, but we didn't want to say. And I think it's going to turn into a bit of an arms race because, everyone's going to realize that unless they have a piece, the network effect is so strong. Unless they have a piece, then they're not going to have any power.
Yeah.
And America's power in the dollar is diminishing. I mean, it was in Congress, wasn't it, where they said that in fact, was it Draghi from the ECB or said that the dollar is using its Tusk, might have said that the dollar is losing its power, and things like Bitcoin are taking it away. And that acknowledgement when he said about Bitcoin, I think that kind of that really resonated with me, that they realize that it's such a powerful thing. Yeah.
Also, I think you have to realize that what governments say and what governments do can be quite different.
Yeah.
I mean, for example, China has incredibly contradictory stance on trading and mining, yet so much mining actually happens in China. Similarly, in Russia, I can't remember the exact job title of the guy, but somebody who's quite senior in a government associated body is behind some huge investment in mining in Russia. So again, you have to watch what people are doing, not what they're saying, I think.
Yeah, I think it's the poker hand, isn't it? And the poker hand, poker face. There is, when you go to these events, and I was working for a treasury department as a business analyst in a finance company, and towards, because I got made redundant on the lead, that was brilliant. So I just basically, they said, spend the training on whatever you you want. So I did as many conferences as I possibly could, and I was speaking to a lot of treasuries. It was very corporate, and there were people from people from the Central Bank of Ireland, various places, and they're all basically saying how there's departments that investigate it. We don't know exactly what they do, but it seems like they're probably buying. And it's all, everyone seemed to have that underlying, almost didn't want to admit it, but they know something's under the hood, whether they are buying it or not, I don't know, but it did seem very much like, even in and this was 2017, early 2017, they're stockpiling it. I think that's fairly obvious. It would be ridiculous not to. I think if it is, you'd have to have some element of hedging. If it's such a massively growing market, it would be silly not to have at least a tiny position.
Exactly, and governments aren't a monolith. That's the thing. They're different people with different opinions. Who some people might have the opinion that with Warren Buffett's partner who said about it's worse than eating babies or whatever, so spawn of the devil, but other people might think that it's a good thing. So you get people with competing opinions in government, but it's just fascinating to see the response to Libra, Facebook's currency, where governments were just horrified that some private company could come along and issue currency. Well, private currencies used to be incredibly common. I think it's really interesting that we've now come round to this thing where we're so used to government's currencies being the only money that we accept, that we forget about the hundreds of years before that, when institutions used to offer their own currency and private currency was actually a really normal thing.
Yeah, well, it's funny you say that about the fear of someone else generating a currency, and the banks currently do, not just central banks. The fractional reserve lending, when you take a loan out with someone, they literally magic the money out of thin air. That's it's quite literally insane. It's like, I don't know. It's like someone coming to you and saying, "Oh, I need X," and you're like, "Oh, out of thin air." Now I've given you this. I've had to do nothing in order to get it. I'm going to give it to you. You're going to pay me interest on paying. What a ludicrous idea!
It is, and people are so ill-informed about it. I read the results of a survey, I think it was this week, where 29% of Americans still believe that the dollar's backed by gold.
Yeah.
And when you have almost a third of your population believing something that hasn't been the case since the 1930s, which is nearly 100 years, then you have a problem.
Yeah, it's sad, isn't it? But then you look at other polls, and this may upset a few people, but I saw, was it 40%, 40 or 45% of Americans believe in ghosts, and I was like, that's a very high amount for, seems a lot. I'm not saying ghosts could possibly be real, but it doesn't seem like there's any evidence for them. So it's just stuff like that. Like, people believe crazy stuff. Like what was it? The when I was younger, and it's still to this day. People, it's a really silly thing, but it's Captain Pugwash show on TV. And there is not someone called Master Bates. There is not someone. There's no character called Master Bates. There's no character called. But like the entire, you speak to people and they're like, "Oh yeah, I remember Pugwash and Master Bates." Ooh. Like, no, they literally did. But everyone still believes it, and it's so hard once a bad bit of information is out to get it out of people's heads.
Oh, I went to a talk. This is not Bitcoin related, but it's so interesting. I went to a talk. The National Science Museum in London does a thing called Lates once a month, which is just brilliant because you can go along after hours and they have interesting talks and so on. They had a Halloween themed one. So one of the talks I went to on Wednesday night was a talk about how people can be made to believe things just by this collective thing that you're talking, this collective thing. So this guy who was giving the talk played some tapes that were supposed to be the result of a seance, and it was just jumbled words. And then he played the same tape after telling us what the supposed thing that people were saying was, and you could hear it really clearly.
Right,
and it's totally the power of suggestion.
Yeah, and getting that out of people. There's probably loads of people that walked out actually believing that there was something extremely paranormal. Like, this guy is like, he must be like a psychic or something. But it's really hard once that idea is in. And my parents, until 2013, my mum thought that the gold was still. She missed the whole Blunkett. Who was it who sold all the gold? Was it Golden Brown? Goodness, that was a great sell. Was it the price back then? It was like $700 or something, wasn't it? Anyway, let's not go into that. But yeah, she still thought that, and and it took me so long to explain and like literally showing. Like, I had to show evidence, but not just one bit of evidence, like 3 or 4 bits, and going like, the gold was sold off ages ago. Oh no, that can't be. And fractional reserve banking, as soon as you tell someone about the way that works, it's an unbelievable thing.
It is unbelievable. People are just like Ron Burgundy. Don't believe you. Don't believe you.
I don't believe you.
I'm going to go in a minute.
Yes,
I'm going to charge my laptop.
Yeah, no problem. No problemos.
But this is an awesome event. I did a really great workshop earlier with Ben Ark, building a lightning point of sale.
I saw. I poked my head around, but I thought, I should have popped in.
Yeah, there's just all these amazing things happening.
So did you build one live then? The point of sale machine?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Can you take it home with you as well?
Yeah.
Oh, what?
It's so awesome.
Oh, well, okay, I'm gonna go and corner him so I can have it.
I think he's doing the workshop again.
Yeah.
Just to because there was another load of people that wanted to see it. So definitely try and catch up with him.
And any talks that you're really looking forward to, or that you've already watched that sort of really stood out?
I missed all the talks because I was in the workshop, but I'm looking forward to Esky Jungle's BTC Bay server talk. So
awesome. I might. I've said that I might also step up on stage if someone will have me.
Oh yeah, you should.
Oh, guess what? I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. But I've got my first proper hired gig, and this may piss some World CryptoNet fans off, but money's money, and I'm skint. But it's I'm performing at Coinbase's Christmas party.
No, that's amazing.
It was amazing, but please don't hate me in the chat. It's literally I'm skint. So like, I don't know, throw me sats or something, and I won't do. No. But I just thought it was really cool. I thought
That's really cool.
Yeah, it was really,
That's really cool.
So hopefully now it's going to be a trend. I can get some sweet gigs out of that. But yeah, so I might be jumping on. So I'll let you know when you'll probably hear me because it will echo around the whole city.
I'll hear you.
But yeah, thanks for coming on, Ran. Take care.
Lovely to
Speak
see
to
you.
soon. Hey. Hello. Oh. Wait. 3. Get the 3. Oh, you're right. Okay. So we're joined by Joe, the organizer of BitBrum. Hey. So, how has organizing this event been on you? Taxing?
I think the key thing about these type of events is that, we're in the second year the BitBrum's run, and the first year was 2007. 17, and we were at the height of the bull market, and everybody was interested in Bitcoin, everybody wanted a piece of it, and the event was free, and we had over 250 odd people turn up, and it was easy to be involved in the space in those. But times like this, it's more a test, is how can you keep the show going? Because the key thing behind the idea of Bitcoin is that we want people to be able to walk in off the street, not have any experience of Bitcoin, not understand the technology, but equally to be able to learn the skills that they need to avoid the scams, and giving them the tools to innovate. And, that agenda carries on irrespective of whether or not Bitcoin is popular from one year to another. But I'm sure that if we were looking at a bull market, then things would be probably a little bit more buzzing. But so we have, we've got about 100 people here at the moment, and everybody's all in workshops and learning about Lightning POS terminal builds, and they're listening to talks on BTC Pay Server and learning Bitcoin basics with Matt Baldock. So yeah, good show.
And in terms of the audience, do you think the people that have come this year are very Bitcoin literate or less literate? Do you think, what I'm trying to say is, do you think they're more Bitcoin literate because of the fact that we're in a bear market? And so the people that kind of stuck around are the ones that are either still hodling, or they're just like, they're just holding on for dear life, trying to hold on to the philosophy of it all, waiting for the bull run to happen again.
Yeah, I think that's it. You've got, on one level, you're preaching to the converted, and some people just get it, and they're all running around saying, why don't people get it?
Yeah.
And then other people are sort of saying, yeah, I'm prepared to put some time in and learn about the technology, and hopefully in an environment like this, when they realize that there's real experts around that haven't got their heads at their asses, they're prepared to talk and explain and share their knowledge with you. That's exactly the type of situation we're trying to promote. But it's, I don't know, I guess it's kind of like being a musician, sometimes you can be really popular and everybody loves your stuff, but being a musician is harder when people aren't listening.
Yeah.
And I think that's the kind of same approach. But I mean, as Adam from CoinFest said, and I've often remembered this, he said, when I first organised CoinFest, I didn't care if it was just my mom. Yeah. And we carry on that philosophy. So hopefully.
Now, CoinFest, I went 2017, and it was the first proper crypto conference I went to, and I thought it was amazing. It's really cool, really down to earth. You've got the pub in the middle of it. You've got the, it's the bar. That's kind of a good and a bad thing. But you spend most of the time in there, and then end up sleeping on the front row, not being on the Bitcoin group show because you're not allowed, but waving the Bitcoin flag and all that. But I love it, and I love the kind of the non-massive commercial conferences, because you get to walk around, you get to speak to the crypto stars, you're starstruck every time I walk around, so and so, and I love the smaller community, and that not having the segregated areas of VIP and stuff, and it's all cool and everything, but it's just nice when everyone's on the same playing field. And it's like that here, you know, everyone is up for talking. No one wants anyone to miss out on information. You know, we're all in it for the long haul. We don't want scammers. We don't want, you know, ridiculous information going around. And so, yeah, everyone's really helpful. That's what I find.
Yeah, which is somewhat helped. I mean, it depends how you find a business model to keep these things going, because I mean, right from the outset, BitBrum isn't about profit, never has been. It's all about being prepared to pay forward and invest in the space to repay that space for the fact that, you know, I've been able to work in the community. So it's the right thing to do, but it's also important professionally as an engineer. Yeah, hopefully we can improve the show. And, you know, if we'd have had a little bit more budget this year, I think we'd have been able to also get, you know, it would be great to get Adam back. Would be perfect, you know, Peter Todd and some of the other guys that we've met at the conferences around and about. When people realize that they can come up and hang out with some really interesting, committed people that are otherwise busy, but they're open and they're happy to talk to you, I think that's a really unique aspect of the crypto space. And it's really nice that you can do that, and we want to be a part of that. So if BitBrum's a way of coming to meet you or the people that otherwise you would only see online, then that's great.
Well, I think the fact is you put a barrier up when you have, not dissing it, but like last time I went to Consensus in 2018, I paid like, I think it was $2,800 because I went last minute. It was savage, you know, and I couldn't even see most of the talks because it was just rammed, and I ended up just spending most of the time in the coffee shops outside, just chatting to people or smoking outside, you know, and that's where you can actually hear stuff and everything. So these conferences are really good because they give people the entry level who are more about learning than just earning like money. You know, I find that on the more expensive ones, you get the kind of big money players, you know, and that's all good in certain environments. But this is a really good learning environment. It's very workshop orientated, and I really like the idea that you're able to get people around the table building things, you know, and that's what's really cool.
Yeah, that's great, and thanks to Ben for that. I mean, he's obviously got that background, and I respect him enormously, because I mean, you can see that he's driven by that kind of same passion for engineering. Ben's in there building stuff now, and when people realize that they can come away from a show like this saying, I wasn't sure if Bitcoin's going to be useful for my business. Well, I mean, you're going to get the reassurance that there's no legal or legislatory reason why you can't accept Bitcoin. Then it becomes a question of how you do it.
Yeah.
And there are various ways of doing it, through point of sale terminals, through websites. And when then you realize the technology is free, and all you're really doing is paying for the same bandwidth and hosting that you would pay for anybody else, and you can be up and running with global micropayments for 0 fees for $8 a month with one click, you would think that people would be battering the door down. But it's surprising. I think there was a survey recently that said something like 5% of Brits actually get the technology, and others either haven't heard of it or they're a long way off being inducted into it. Yet Britain is predominantly small businesses are earning, employing people less than five people.
Well, even like it's, you know, is it still like the financial capital of the world? I heard that word, you know, that phrase bandied about a while back, but surely, like, you know, you would be the forefront of technology, and Bitcoin is clearly the most ninja technology for finance. So, you know, I don't understand why we're not, as a country, embracing it more. I mean, it seems logical that, you know, they're clocking onto all the other buzzwords, you know, AI as bank tellers, and they're fitting in all these other technological areas where they can use AI and blah blah blah. But then you've got blockchain, you've got Bitcoin, and you're like, there's Bitcoin. They're like drug dealers. And you're like, oh yeah, what did people use for drugs before? Well, I'm not gonna lie. When I was naughty in uni, I only used cash to buy green plants, not of that variety. I mean, I'm a horticulturalist. Yeah. So what? You know, crime didn't exist before Bitcoin? Is that what? It just doesn't make sense.
Well, if you want to get onto that as a subject, then I mean, early on in my time with Bitcoin, I ended up doing training for the police, for 42 police forces in the UK. They all have digital media investigators, and they said, oh, you know about cars. Do you want to come and talk to us about car architecture? And it's like, how about Bitcoin? Is anybody interested? Yeah, funnily enough, quite a few people have asked, maybe you could run a course on it. I was meeting serving police officers that have been mining Bitcoin since 2010. And they're like, what's not to like about it? And they even said at the time, there isn't much criminal activity around Bitcoin, to be honest, because, you know, people, if you think you can get involved in criminal activity with Bitcoin, you must be the dumbest fuck out there, because you're going to have your door kicked in 10 seconds flat.
It's like,
it's not the currency that you want to use for criminality. I mean, yeah, it can be used as a global payment mechanism. Probably you can buy some weed from wherever. I mean, personally, I would never waste Bitcoin on anything like that. You know, buying cash has been doing that for years. And the idea that you can outlaw a technology because somehow it is good enough to be adopted by early adopters is like saying, well, we should shut the M4 because terrorists use it.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, or ban shoes. I mean, the fact that the technology is picked up by these people, but it's changing very fast. I mean,
the fact that it's used show that it works. Isn't that really odd? Like, people use stuff that works, and it's like, wasn't it? What was it? The internet, like, you know, obviously the internet, people were using it for stuff, and writing your emails and stuff, and, you know, watching a picture download line by line back in the day. But like,
I remember
but ubiquitous porn is what basically set the end. That is nefarious from people's perspective, but it was a distribution method and it worked.
I mean, I'm of an age where I literally remember, like it was yesterday, where two things. One is, isn't the internet nothing but porn?
Yep.
And it was seemingly nothing but porn, because that is the way that
the glory
days
started, the glory hole days.
And then another one, in a group of at a professional conference sometime in the 90s, somebody saying, has anybody used a credit card to pay online these days? You must be mad. Received wisdom that everybody understood that, of course, it was a really stupid idea, this whole internet thing. And we're very much in that time now. And, you know, when people realize that there's many upsides to this technology and it is accessible, but you have to marvel at the forces that are out there trying to prevent people's consciousness of it. And, you know, we're not particularly militant in the way we go about anything. We're just trying to spread the message. But you've only got to pull back the leaves and you realize that this technology is something that informs many a business. And in my case, the automotive industry is something that I've worked a lot in. And just in the last 1 or 2 years, especially, people are really catching on to the idea that you can use this technology in cars for micropayments and for data sharing and access control, for pay-per-use updates. And of course, it's a global currency where you can make very small payments with almost no fees without having to change the systems you put in that car one little bit to go in different territories.
So are you saying that soon I will be able to lightning pay the car in front to move out the bloody way?
That has actually been specified as one of the use cases where somebody said, yeah, you will get people that will say, look, my car's just paid you to get the hell out of my way. I'm in a hurry, and you know, here's some lightning payments. And of course, the communication of this bunch of bytes between two cars is a minimal subset of the kind of complexity that cars deal with now. I mean, your average car's got 90 embedded systems in it. A Range Rover or something like that has around 90 embedded systems, and some of them are very powerful devices. They can control the engine control system, the stability control system. They can cope with engines of different types, diesel, petrol, hybrid, combine them with electric motors. The level of infotainment and the level of sophistication, it's widely known in the industry that if you go and buy a car, around 50% of the money, the value that you see in that vehicle is expressed by the electronics and stuff in it. When you watch a car advert, they never talk about catalysts. They're always talking about the sat-nav. And it shows you that people are very much... So the idea that we're working on is that you can... everybody that owns a car or operates a car, they're generating data. That data is essentially yours because it's available through public protocols with off-the-shelf equipment, and it's valuable. If you imagine what would be the value of knowing how many electric vehicles were traveling through Birmingham during the week, in the mornings, what would be the value of somebody saying, I'm running my own little local ride sharing scheme, or I have an electric bike and I'd like to share it with my friend or rent it out. So when you start to use tokens to some extent, they're very easy to get started with. But of course, they're magic beans in many ways. They're not worth anything unless you choose to give them some value, and that's problematic. Bitcoin has always been possible to engineer into a car, but the blockchain's way too big, and the proof of work requirements are way too hard for a car. So you have to have a way of mitigating that. But when you do have large numbers of cars connected to these networks, then you can start to use micropayments, and people can literally conduct activity between themselves and their car, between themselves and other people, or between cars and other cars, and also cars and infrastructure. So you can be paying for events, you can be using lightning payments to give you access to barriers for parking, as a reward for the data that you're sharing, as a reward for offering people lifts. So these are the sort of systems we're trying to build now. And they rely on some other interesting aspects of so-called blockchain technology. For example, if you're in the business of offering people lifts in your car, or you want to rent it to them, of course, you can't do that on an anonymous basis. You need to know who the hell's taking your car or is getting in that car.
Yeah.
So for that, we have an identity system built in that basically allows you to take the passports of around 50 different countries and scan them, store the information in a blockchain, and then you can prove who you are by saying, by taking a selfie, you can say, I'm Peter from Canada, or I'm Joe from Birmingham, and I live in this city, or this is my address. So the system can attest to various bits of information about your physical identity, and it's backed by AI that effectively associates the selfie that you're using as evidence to check against an encrypted hash of your details that are stored in this blockchain. And we have this built into the app so that people can say, I'll only rent my car to people that have been through this app, and in the end, I do have some recourse to the people.
What do you think? Do you see though that with the increased amount of electrical systems within a car, and especially with the autonomous cars coming along, that they're very much more open to attack?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're talking about classic cybersecurity issues around cars. Now, this is a thing that really kick-started the whole vehicle security thing, is that for many years, cars weren't connected to the internet. They were developed by people that worked very closely together. It was a bit of a boys' club. There wasn't any globalization. People know how to keep their mouths shut. Things that really shouldn't get out didn't get out. And correspondingly, there's a famous talk by Andreas Antonopoulos, which is absolute classic parody with and interesting to compare with the automotive industry, and it was Bubble Boy and Sewer Rap. Did you ever see that? So Andrew's basic premise was like, I'm going to talk about kids. My sister's had some kids, I don't have any. What is this helicopter parent thing going on at the moment? Why do the moment they get any mud on them, do they come and shower them in, they call it Purell, we call it Savlon. This idea that you can protect your kids, and what happens is that they don't mix with anybody, they don't get colds, they don't develop immunity. This is what's happened in the automotive industry for years. And attacking a moving car that's built like a Range Rover or something like it is very hard when the thing's doing 80 mile an hour down the motorway. The moment you connect it to the internet, suddenly these so-called attack surfaces are starting to be revealed, and they are massive. So think about all of the wireless technology that's around your car. You've got tire pressure monitoring running over Bluetooth, over Wi-Fi. You've got the infotainment system you're connecting to Bluetooth. You probably can run a wireless hotspot from your car. Plugging in a Bitcoin node into that is pretty easy if you're an individual, because it's kind of, I've got a gadget, I'll plug it in, I can drive around. Engineering the capability to systematically use cryptocurrency payments takes a lot longer, because you can't be putting keys in cars in a way that they can be extracted. These things are, it's a famous saying about Land Rover, 75% of all the Land Rovers that are ever built are still on the road, and the other 25% of them are chicken sheds. And that is how long these cars stay out in the wild. So where the technology is evolving around this cryptocurrency, I mean, to commit that to a production vehicle that's going to be out in the wild for 15 or 20 years is a bold move at this stage for anybody. But to understand what global frictionless micropayments and the ability for people to monetize their data, and also to handle access control and be able to share the resources that they own. So out of the box, you've got the ability to run a fleet of bikes that wants to deliver pizzas, or you've got a local ride sharing scheme. Some funds exchange hands to cover petrol. That's how they do it normally with cash. You can immediately do this same stuff with crypto without having to ask anybody's permission.
Just lightning it. Yeah. And I think that's what worries me is about 3-4 years ago, I presented at a testing conference, and the guy after me he was an ethical hacker, and he had a few products that he talked about, and it was all about the Internet of Things, this new age of product, and how you need to be really careful with what you buy and who you buy it from. Yes. Now, I think in terms of car management, there's car integrated lightning or lightning integrated cars. There's a huge amount more work and effort that goes in. But these are the smaller products are the ones you have to look out for. Like there was so one example was a bar. It was a similar type Barbie doll. I don't know if it's Barbie. Other toys are allowed, whatever BBC makes you say. So it was a doll, and it said stuff, and the guy live hacked it on stage, and he redirected the queries to a different database, and it was started effing and blinding, and he was pressing the buttons, and it was saying all sorts of hilariously horrid stuff. And you think, oh, that's crazy. And he did the same thing with a toaster and with kettles, and he actually, because he was able to reverse engineer the proprietary software that hadn't even been changed, and they didn't even encrypt the Wi-Fi ID, he was able to see a map of every one of these kettles in London and could turn them on and off as he wished. And then even more scary, the old, I don't know how to say this before the watershed, but the Wi-Fi controlled wobblers that so yeah, apparently that's quite a big thing. These things are getting hacked now, so people are like suddenly buzzing and being like, oh shit, did someone's broke the internet, so you've got to be really careful. See, it's an amazing thing. It's really powerful being able to have these systems, but it's got to be done carefully, and I bet that's a worry when you're building that system, is that you're going to have one of these moments.
Absolutely. Did you hear of the G-Pack? The G-Pack.
Oh no, that's probably similar to the wobbler.
Yeah, so basically you've got a relatively small subset of cars operating with one particular phone network. You've got I
was thinking of a different G.
Yeah, no, Jeep. Jeep,
oh,
the
Jeep.
company. Basically two hackers or security people, Charlie Miller and Chris Valasek, put a rocket under the arse of the car industry a few years ago, because they were able to hack into the head-up display of the car, bypass the fact that there wasn't really a very thorough way of setting the thing up, because they're fitted on the track, so the passwords are open. They managed to crack the wireless password to get remote access to the head-up unit. From there, they immediately could play around with the heating and control systems on the car, put silly pictures up, make your head-up display switch to crazy tracks. But then here's the clever thing. I mean, in cybersecurity parlance, it's called lateral movement, where you say, well, okay, so where can I get to from here? So they basically moved on to the CAN chip, the controller area network chip, which links together many important embedded systems on cars. And they were able to basically, then the interesting stages, posing as Jeep service people, they were able to get access to the information they needed to get through the security mechanism, take control of the steering and brakes of the car,
savage,
and put this Jeep off the road. All because they were effectively exploiting a very old network that's been around a long time, doesn't have much protection, was invented way before the World Wide Web, and has hitherto been not connected to the internet. The moment you make that connection, they were able to basically expose the fact that the cryptographic protection around these systems was kind of 20 years old and hadn't really been improved, because there was no necessity to do it. Yeah. It was something that only the industry knew about. But of course, all of this information gets out online. Now you can look at these protocols on Wikipedia. So there's challenges and opportunities. One is that the car industry needs to improve its cryptographic security. The whole area around decentralized technology, disintermediated networks, decentralized networks, micropayments, decentralized consensus, absolutely informs the design of connected autonomous vehicles, and many firms are really starting to wake up for that. There are quite a few firms in the space now that are working on the back office stuff to do with saying, hey, we can use smart contracts to handle our vehicle rental and leasing back, and we can save a lot of money. We're one of the few companies that's involved in developing the technology and trying to embed it in the car, because if you can turn those 90 or so embedded systems in a car into a distributed peer-to-peer network, you cannot attack that car anyway as easily as you can now, where there's single points of failure.
Interesting. Yeah.
So you're effectively aggregating the combined weight
Network
of
effect.
all of the embedded systems in the car and across entire fleets together to work in a decentralized network. So attack one car, then of course, you've got the private key security stuff to look for. But in cars, the automotive industry is not as daft as people might think. We have secure hardware modules built into the embedded systems in cars. So you've effectively got the capabilities of a hardware wallet built into most automotive systems.
Yeah.
So then the problem is to say, well, of course, my engine management system can't be doing proof of work. You need to have a way of dialing back that consensus mechanism in a way that allows you to induct fleets of cars into these networks, but still not dilute the decentralized benefits of having the networks. The moment you do that, then tokens, micropayments, data sharing can all be done. But the same technology can run in a lamppost, it can run in a traffic light, it can run in a coffee machine. It's all about making the protocol as small as possible so it can work on very low resource microprocessors. And that's the sort of stuff.
So have you assessed so Litecoin, because you go lightning. So you're integrating Lightning, yeah? I'm assuming you've investigated shitcoins. What was the reason that drew you to Lightning?
There's a lot of interest in IOTA in the automotive industry at the moment. There's a lot of attention being paid for it. Some well-known manufacturers, Jaguar Land Rover, I'm very fond of, have decided that they're going to be giving people IOTA for data that they gather from the vehicles, because of course the cars have got more than enough sensors to detect potholes.
Yeah.
So you can kind of sell that information back. So imagine that. Birmingham City Council turns the entire Jaguar Land Rover population of Birmingham into a bunch of pothole-seeking autonomous. Well, that's got to be worth it.
Assessing for the government, and not that they'll do anything about it, because not being funny, but English roads are bloody awful.
Well,
cheerio, pip pip, and all that.
We need a change of government. Basically,
need no government. No government.
The idea behind it is basically sound. But let's say this: if you were a Range Rover driver and somebody was giving you kind of IOTA, compared to being a Ford driver, and I could earn Lightning payments. I mean, I'm not suggesting Ford as such, just as a mass car manufacturer. Where's the value? And would you sell the data from your everyday car for IOTA? Would you sell it for Satoshis? You might do, especially if it's a commute that you're doing every day. You're not giving away anything of yourself. You're not disclosing. And if you have a system where you can say, fine, I'm sharing my data. For anybody who wants to buy it, I might get 10p a day for it, but it's useful because I'm commuting through Birmingham. If I have other plans in the evening, then turn it off, and you can remove that delegation. So it's giving people sovereignty over their own data, and also giving them the ability to monetize that data. And the challenge is then to start the data marketplace that allows people, of course, if you're an independent developer of phone applications that rely on geographic information, say in Birmingham or in any other city, and you want to get real data to be able to help you design this application, then who do you go to? If you're not in bed with some huge company, or you're prepared to pay deal with an asymmetrically larger organization to try and get this data. I think that's where the demand will come from, is that we'll start a community revolution in data sharing, and it starts off small, but the costs associated with distributing that data are very small, because using Lightning Network, you can afford to take 10p a day, and it's not costing you anything.
Yeah,
It's data that you would generate anyway, so why wouldn't you? And I think if we can get to that stage,
yeah,
then we'll get the take up.
that's it. I think you're totally right there. Like, adoption at the moment for Bitcoin is not difficult, because people have to get over the concepts, get over the security hurdles, get over the technology, get over the how to use it, private key management, etc. If you give someone a system like your car system, integrated car system with Lightning, and you say, right, you have the choice whether you have these payments or not, you make that decision so easy. And especially when you make it, a lot of people have said that Bitcoin is going to be successful when people don't even know they're using it.
Yeah.
Like, that's, I think, really powerful.
Yeah,
and if you could, it's even to the extent that you say people don't even know it's Bitcoin, you can at the end of it say, I want my fee in Bitcoin or fiat.
Yeah.
You could even give people, and then they don't know it's Bitcoin until they go, oh, I'll have it in Bitcoin this time. What's Bitcoin?
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, the whole UX side of things is an area where there's a massive amount of work to do. You can pretty much reduce the complexity of the applications to say, well, how many tokens do you want to receive per block? How much do you want to charge per day for renting the car out?
Yeah.
Lightning payments are built in, token payments are built in, and you've got all the other currencies that go with them. But you cannot get away with the fact that equally, culturally, you are starting to deal with real money on a day-to-day basis with ordinary people that hitherto had bought your car. But this is the holy grail for automotive companies. They want to keep people in the ecosystem. It's how they make the profit on their cars. It isn't just the thing that goes out of the factory and is bought. It's the experience going forward. So when you've got ways of effectively keeping the customers engaged, and you've got a cost-free or very low-cost way of making these payments, you've got the ability to enhance the kind of ownership experience as much as possible. But along the way, of course, anybody that gets into this technology has to understand private key security. And that's what BitBrum's about. You can come here and you can say, like, what the hell is the deal with all of these private keys? I need to keep them secure. How do I do that? What do I need? And of course, when you finally get to that stage, it's no more difficult than opening a packet of cornflakes once you're familiar with the technology. But it can seem daunting at first, and that is what BitBrum is all about. So the fact that the work that we're doing in the business is able to help underwrite BitBrum and to create that opportunity for people, that's why we're here. That's why everybody else is here.
And so if the main point of this you're saying is education. You want people to go away informed, able to have their bullshit detector on board.
Definitely,
and for next, so what if you had a message for the people that could potentially come next year? What would it be?
The whole idea about BitBrum is to give you the ability to learn about the technology in an objective way from people that are concerned about the quality of the information they're giving you. We do our absolute utmost to keep out all of the scams and so on, because that is the next pitfall. Giving you the confidence and skills to innovate is what really it's all about, and that's what we're here for. And BitBrum will always try and do that, but we also hope to be able to introduce people to some of the awesome people in the space who, we take for granted that you get to hang out with world famous cryptographers over a coffee.
No, it's amazing, isn't it?
And these guys are unsung heroes. They're people that aren't, glamorous. They're not the sort of people you would see interviewed on the BBC, but the contribution they're making to changing the world we live in. You can come and meet these people and you'll find that they're highly accessible. There's no egos.
Yeah.
I think.
And then you have Craig Wright, which is like the literal opposite. Sorry. Just, it grinds my gears. Sorry, Karen.
Well, no, but
the open sourceness. It's like that information sharing. It's that side of things.
It's about, partly many engineers in the space. It's responsibility to help educate your peers. Also, you have a professional responsibility to make sure the stuff that you're doing is as good as quality. You know, mixing BitBrum with professional conferences is something quite hard because it's like herding cats in this space. But the idea that you can hang out with some of these great people, yeah. And BitBrum is one of those kind of shows where you never quite know who you're meeting.
Yeah.
And we've got some interesting people. So, yeah, get out of bed on Sunday and come and do something useful with your week.
Awesome. Well, I will be here for the foreseeable. We've got someone else to interview as well. Yeah. So yeah, Joe. Well, thanks very much. Looks like we can grab someone. Yeah. So thanks for awesome conference so far. I'm looking forward to catching up online because Mad Bitcoins has got me here. Yeah, thank you. Manning the show because he's Mad Bitcoins. Tom's emceeing. He's a great MC. Love it. Hello. Right, so can you introduce yourself to the audience?
Hi, I'm Apple Lemberg. Today I'm here with some crypto art, Bitcoin art.
Ah, that's yours.
That's yes.
I love crypto art.
Good.
I love. So I've got 6 of the. I don't know what the name is, but I can't remember the guy who did it. But I buy them from Physique, who's Fizzy.
Physique.
Yeah, Mickey. And so there's 6 of them. There's like they're kind of portrait style prints, and they've got like there's one about the halvening, there's one about Doge Rain.
I've seen them. Yeah,
I love
beautiful,
them. Yeah,
beautiful.
I've got those, and then the most recent one I bought. I was slightly drunk when I agreed to it. I didn't quite realise how much it was going to be. It's probably a bit of a problem. I know. Drink less. Don't be so agreeable. But I saw the yes man and it looked good, and I thought I was going to say yes to everything. Anyway, so and it ended up being quite a lot, a bit over my budget. But at least I feel really good when I walk past it. But I think the thing that drew me into Bitcoin and crypto so much was the creativity. I love it. The art, the memes, the songs, just everything is so creative.
Yeah. That's what we. What Bitcoin actually got me going back to creativity. Me and my wife, she's always also here. We made art before, and very creative, house full of paint and materials to make stuff. But financial crisis came, and was more about surviving than really creating stuff. People hire me for restoring buildings and yachts, and brings in money, but it's not really creative process for me.
Yeah.
So when Bitcoin came along less than 2 years ago, it was a start for me to get back in, getting creative.
Yeah.
The knowledge I have about paint and epoxy, I work with with resin.
Yeah.
So that's what's for me to start. Yeah, let's do this. That's what all about fun for me.
And that's almost poetic that you said the financial crisis was the thing that stumped your creativity. At the same time, it was the thing that triggered Bitcoin, or I said triggered it as in Chancellor on brink of second bailing for banks. So that's Satoshi was he hated the banking system. He hated the way they caused this massive, ridiculous crash. The fact that no one's heads have rolled because of it, and yet. I think there's probably more people arrested around Bitcoin than there is in the banking system over the last 10, 12 years. And the worst thing is that there's, I can't remember what the most recent stat was, but the banking fine since 2008 is still absolutely shit on the whole current Bitcoin market cap. And it really makes me laugh about that. And I think the hysterical kind of side of it is what brings out the creativity. You've almost, people view Bitcoin as a joke, but Bitcoin has viewed the traditional banking system as an absolute farce. And so that's why can you sell something that's pretending this facade of being genuine and for the people when it's actually a joke? So Bitcoin fights a joke with a joke.
Yeah. And the beauty of it for me as well is making people more aware, because before I was aware of the banking, the system that I don't like, but and I like to, stand up and say something about it, but it didn't happen. But through this, yeah, you can show it. I like to talk about it, and especially what's wrong with what we have now. And still, a lot of people, the majority of people I talk to, don't know what it is, don't know what Bitcoin is. So it's a great way to start conversation. So to make people aware.
And is this your first conference?
No, I've been my first conference this year. I was not with Art. There was Magical Crypto Conference in New York.
Oh yeah, I missed that.
And I was in Baltic Honey Badger.
Oh, was there? Yeah.
That's where I met Joe, who was just on, and he invited me to
nice.
today. So
yeah. Honey Badger was good this year. It's been a great year for conferences.
Yeah.
Very, very busy. Very busy.
Yeah, there's a lot of going on in the world. Conference wise,
it's the numbers are down, but the dedication is it's still there. But I think people go through these lulls. You have the ups, the downs, and it does scare people off when they've lost money. But some people lose money, and it drives them even harder. It's like, well, I lost money for a scam. Now I want to make sure that other people don't get scammed. I want to make sure that people learn the actual message. I want to make people know that they're being scammed at the moment by the current system. I mean, that's the most hilarious scam that we have. So if there was what's the key message then, or what themes that you're trying to get across in your art in terms of messaging?
Yeah, good question. Well, for me, it's making this. I don't think it's just pure about fun, using, of course, the Bitcoin logo. I like color, I like epoxy, I like Bitcoin, I like the disruption.
Yeah.
And yeah, but message, I wouldn't say it's more of maybe because I use a lot of color.
Yeah.
Shouting out what it is, bringing awareness. I think that's, if you ask me, that's what it is.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And so, when you said you were into art before, what was it? Were you previously an artist, or?
Yeah, we did. Me and my wife, we did both. We painted with wax on paper, on plexiglass. We also made cubic lamps where we painted on pyramids. That's what we did for some years. My wife made digital art.
Nice.
We did some online print business for a few years. Also making my own stuff. I made boards from pellet wood. Is the right English word? From all pellets.
Yeah.
And print photos on. That's what we did for a few years. So always creative stuff.
Yeah. And you glad you're back in?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So do you have any conferences, any other ones this year, or is BitBrum it for the year?
I think so. CoinFest coming up next year. I want to be there. And
it's good. I love CoinFest.
Yeah, and that will be the first for me. But what I've heard and read so far, it's big fun. So
it is. That's great.
And I hope to be going back to Magical Crypto. I don't know where it's going to be held.
Yeah.
And I'm going back to Honey Badger next year as well.
Are you going to try and do exhibitions there as well?
Yeah, for Honey Badger, they invited me. I was there with my art this year, and we'll be there.
Oh yes, yeah. I actually remember now. Yes, because I was. It was in the by the bull, but by literally when I went to buy this hat, Bull Bitcoin stand. It was just
I was there together with Martin Fisher.
Yeah, I saw a few times. I was there and you weren't there, but I did admire your pieces as well. Yeah, I remember now. Yeah. That's so. Honey Badger, you didn't have. Oh, sorry, you had a stand this year. You're gonna have a stand next year. Was it popular? Do you get a lot of interest from the conferences?
No, not much. It was my first, and just have to show myself and get out there, and people will come in.
Yeah. Sure. It's a snowball thing, isn't it?
I made my first sale there to Joe. So.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. Oh, that's good then.
Yeah, it's good.
Well, I might pop over myself as well, because I tend to don't sell too hard though, because I've got an inability to say no. So I may have just set myself up for it. But in terms of other artists, are there any other artists in the crypto sphere that you admire? You like the kind of work that they do?
Well, Of course, on crypto Twitter, I see them all. I have only met Martin Fisher in Riga. I like what he's doing. Physique, Trevor Jones. I
Yeah, I
think
like
he's
yeah.
beautiful what he makes.
Yeah.
And I hope to meet him next year and admire some stuff in.
I liked his AR. He's like, you know, AR, augmented reality kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really.
But there are a lot of artists, and I hope to want to meet them and see their art on the walls.
Definitely. Yeah. Vesa, VESA. He's pretty good.
Vesa, yeah.
That was so I bought his fork and flip and fork.
Okay.
It is beautiful. It's very nice.
Yeah, so
and he customized it as well. So it's got like it's got my kind of logo on my avatar logo on there. So I was like, this is amazing. So
I saw what he was doing now I think he's now in Vegas.
Yes. Well, he's at the World Crypto Con.
Yeah.
It sounds very much like World Crypt something. I don't know what it is. It sounds like sounds like that. It's really funny actually. I was looking through the Twitter, and there's so many people that tagged World CryptoNet, almost as if it was kind of by accident. I don't know. Maybe I'm just I'm speculating, but I'm not speculating. I was just But no. I just think that the art space is amazing. We're seeing a lot more. So I just make crypto songs and like covers and stuff like that. And I mean, I was inspired originally the old days of like Wulong, and it's sort of around 2013. There's like the Wulong song, and there was like others. I think it was Bitcoin is a bubble. So this girl is on fire, but it's Bitcoin is a bubble. And it was when Bitcoin's $30, and you look back at that. Someone went through a shitload of effort to convince people not to buy Bitcoin at $30. I'd feel awful. I'd feel awful. Wouldn't you? You'd be like, oh shit! I don't want to see them again. They were going to buy 10 Bitcoin for like $30, and I made a song that convinced them not to. So I'm making it like, I know I don't want people to buy Bitcoin from my song, but yeah, the songs, the art, there's just a lot of cool creativity that's coming about, and even the technological, the engineering, like Ben's IoT function, building, devices and stuff like that. There's just so much creativity. I love it.
Yeah, so much going on and so much being developed. It's exciting. It's really exciting what's happening.
So what is there anything in particular in the crypto space you're looking forward to in 2020? Conferences, halvenings, anything that's planned or unplanned, or that you think might happen in 2020?
Well, I'm definitely excited about creating new stuff.
Yes, yeah.
I have a lot of ideas. New materials.
What's your website as well? Sorry.
That's my name, eppoleemburg.com. eppoleemburg.com. That's where you can find my art. And if people want to custom made something, I also make tables, chairs with Bitcoin, whatever.
Nice.
People can come to me and see if I can make it.
Fantastic.
So
you do custom jobs as well then?
Yeah.
Oh, epic. Yeah. So have you had like some like corporate customers? You like do Coinbase a giant sculpture or something?
I haven't had them in yet, but come on.
Well, I'll be shilling for you. Like, you get this guy in, like massive sculpture. That sounds really cool.
Yeah.
So and you're from Amsterdam, are you?
I'm from Holland. Amsterdam is actually.
Sorry. Oh, yeah, I've gone on. Sorry, ignorant.
I'm from the south.
I know. Yeah, so I'm always bad with that. It's just because I've visited a few times just to check out the scenery and stuff. No, Amsterdam's beautiful.
Amsterdam's beautiful city.
Yeah, I would like to see a lot more of Holland. Rotterdam's really nice as well.
Rotterdam, we're even an hour below Rotterdam. We're close to Antwerp.
Nice. So I mean, like, I think it takes 6 hours to drive from my house to Amsterdam. So it probably only takes 4.5, 5 to. Yeah. Obviously, with a train, giant long train in the bottom.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Well, I think we're going to see if we can get. I'm going to try and get Nindy on actually, because because Nindy hasn't been. He never comes on the camera.
Okay.
So everyone only knows him by name. So I'm going to see if I can catch him off guard now. But Eppo, mate,
thank you very much.
Brilliant.
Thanks for having me.
Love the interview. And what we'll do is we'll put on the show. We'll put the we'll put your website on there as well, and when
Thanks.
we cut it up, and so people can see the interview. We'll shout on Twitter as well. Are you on Twitter?
Twitter, yeah.
And what's your
My
handle?
name Eppo Leenburg. You can find me on Twitter.
Can you spell it? Because I was going to try and spell it out.
My first name is EPPO.
EPPO.
Last name LEEMBURG.
Cool. That's definitely not how I would have tried to. So I'm glad you did it. Otherwise, I'd have made a fool out of myself and looked really ignorant. But no, Evo, absolutely brilliant having you on. Thanks very much. Cheers. Come on. Come on. Come on. I can't get him on. I mean, do a little I can't do freestyle. That's I will. Okay, so what we'll do. I've been working. I'll sit in the middle actually, very briefly. Oh, thanks so much. This is Kyle. Right. Go and buy some crypto art. That's just too close. Thank you. So, Biggie. I'm actually going to try and jump on the mic. Oh, hey, do you want an interview? Come join. Just very quickly. Come sit down. I'll do it anyway. So Rico, I'm going to give you. What's your name? Sorry, introduce yourself. Sorry. I'm terrible at this hosting stuff. I always forget all the key bits. I'm Dan.
Hi, I'm Noaz.
Nice.
So I'm a freelance writer for Decrypt Media.
I know Decrypt Media. Just the same as Tim
Copeland. Yes, I work quite closely with Tim Copeland.
Yeah. So
one of the news editors there.
Because okay, whilst we're actually on the rap subject, okay, so very quickly, I've been practicing the noddle rap. Because I had to try and do it under 25 seconds because I missed the Lightning conference, but they were going to put a video of me doing it every time someone made a payment or something like that. Anyway, so it goes. It's about the noddle. Have you heard of a noddle box?
No, I'm not. Please let me know.
Okay, so I'll teach you about it now. It's a small box where it's a Bitcoin with full nodes and Lightning node, and it's going to go, excuse me, because I don't want to cause alarm, but you miss monetary liberty in your palm. Bitcoin, Lightning, full nodes on an arm, support the network, run a node, not a farm. Got not a black box direct from Nodal it. So there's only 21 and I'm going to hodl it. Plug play set up and you want to be Nodal it on arrival tweet box and I might even model it. Not just a node, BTC pace over Bitcoin payment processing in a networking observer, upgradable, expandable, trusted observer, be a pillar for the network whilst you feed your Bitcoin further. I've got 1 to 21 right before I hit the flocks, get involved and run a node to start verifying blocks. Not just mining, stop attacking nodes, all to help out Fox on the hodl is a dollar with a Nodal back box. Bitcoin corner, what's allowed, not just yet too technical, try Nodal cloud. You also get financial self-sovereignty, the banks you can forget before I go. Please check the video on at World Crypto. Yeah. So that was just for you, Rico. So
I can see why they call you the crypto raptor now.
Yeah. The sad thing is that the only reason I'm called Crypto Raptor is because I used to be Cryptopoly or Satoshi Swagamoto, but then I got stuck on the last line of like the first rap that I wrote, and I needed to find something that rhymed with rapture, and I was like, I'm gonna have to change my name, and so I'm slowly transitioning into the Crypto Raptor. But yeah, so Tim interviewed me actually, and there was a bit of a hoo-ha after, you see.
Oh really?
Because when I'm not a rapper, you see, I'm an entertainer, as it were, or at least I attempt to. But when people refer to you as a rapper, rap fans get really pissed off. So I'm like, no, it's not a rap. No, you know. But yeah, no, so it was a cool interview. I think so. Decrypt Media, you're doing journalists covering events, is it?
Yeah, so to be actually honest, I actually live 5 minutes away from this event. So this was, I think this is the shortest commute I've ever come to a Bitcoin conference.
Brilliant.
But don't normally work on Sundays, but as a bit of a one-off event. But it's quite a nice, actually relaxed event today. So I think it's probably about 100 or so people, but it seems kind of the core Bitcoiners are kind of here rather than newbies, which is, it kind of takes me back to what Bitcoin kind of was in 2013, 2014, kind of that kind of atmosphere.
Pre-shill,
pre-ICO boom, pre-Ethereum, pre-smart contracts, when it was just really about selling money.
Pre-Ethereum. Yeah. It's like Prometheus, but pre-Ethereum. I like it.
But Decrypt Media actually, so I used to work for CoinRevit before that, but currently writing for Decrypt Media. But we normally focus on long-form content. So I'm interested to try and get a couple of in-depth interviews today and try and make some content coming soon. But awesome. Do give me a follow on Twitter, Noah's Crypto.
And who are you looking forward to interviewing today? Decrypt Media as well. It's decryptmedia.
So it's decrypt.co is decrypt.co. They did actually, it was actually called decryptmedia.com last year, but they'd actually changed the name. But we're actually growing pretty fast actually. And there's a lot of people coming to the website. So it's great to get a bit of traction, really. It's nice.
And anyone you're interested in speaking to today in particular?
Yeah, so I actually interviewed Thomas Hunt maybe about 4 or 5 months ago. So I think in CoinFest when we were up in Manchester. So back then he told me his advice was to hodl plus profits is kind of the best trading strategy. I think Bitcoin was about 4,000 or 5,000 on that day, so it's gone up since then. So maybe I think his advice seemed to work out. But no, I'm maybe looking forward to having a chat with him today because I kind of think, you know, Thomas has been in this space since 2013. And, you know, he did his talk on stage and he was talking about he was one of the original people, you know, with Tone Vays, with a couple other people who just wanted to talk about Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And, you know, I tuned into many of those kind of shows myself. I think he said he did 600 shows in 2 years, which was pretty incredible, pretty committed.
Yeah.
And, you know, I really see him as one of the warriors in the space. And, you know, he just didn't stop talking about it before it became a real thing. And Bitcoin is a real thing today. So it's exciting times.
It's, you know, it's he was actually one of the shows I was saying earlier that I heard about Bitcoin. I didn't really get into the loss of it until like 3 or 4 months after. 3 or 4 months after I'd bought a load of graphics cards and mined shitcoins, and then was like, then lost loads of money in the peak 2013 thing, and then I was like, oh, but I understand Bitcoin now because I was forced to because I was invested in it so much. But no, like when I saw his show, I was like, it was still a bit you know, hazy to me, this whole concept. And as silly as it sounds, the ridiculousness of the hat, the psychedelic backgrounds made me think, oh, now it's fitting into place. Like, you know, I kind of saw the zaniness of it attractive, and then, you know, the anarchistic side, and then you get onto the how it's better than the existing system, what the existing systems offer, what they don't offer, how they restrict you and censor you in certain ways. And I think he's just a great educator. He's so well read. And yeah, he's someone who's been really good, just consistently delivering content through the ups, through the downs, through all of that.
Yep. I mean, you know, the one thing that I think is stayed the same is this: there's only ever going to be 21 Bitcoins. And for me, it's the world's biggest scarce decentralized asset. Some people, you know, don't recognize today what is protecting that scarcity. So, you know, when I talk about Bitcoins, I always talk about there's 50 to 100,000 nodes on the network. And I always think about the mining hash rate and the mining hash power. And just to give you some figures, there's about $2.5 billion worth of hardware, which is online at the moment mining Bitcoin. And those miners are paying bills of 500 grand roughly an hour, and they're mining 700 grand of Bitcoin. And, you know, they've been running nonstop for 10.5 years. And, you know, what people are going to realize is Bitcoin is here to stay. And I think, you know, when you see these, I was talking to Steve, the conference organizer, earlier today, and he kind of said he's maybe operating this conference at a bit of a loss at the moment. But he says, you know, he believes in the message. He invested back early and he can afford to kind of fund this thing. And he said, if there's just one new person today who comes in, who learns something about that aspect, then, you know, it's all kind of paid off. So, you know.
It's weird. It's like it's an industry where everyone kind of, or at least some people they either are in for life, you know, they have the epiphany, or that's it, you know, they're burnt and then they're out and then it becomes bad. But it's amazing how much people want to share, and maybe it was the fact that Bitcoin's built on open source technology, and actually I didn't really like have much interest or know about open source before Bitcoin. It was actually what made me learn about, and now I'm like, open source rocks is amazing. Like the fact that people can collaborate and, you know, all over the world. I did my dissertation on intellectual property rights and the impact of intellectual property rights on developing economies. And not that I was an economist, not that I basically it was a very over my head stuff. But I realized about how much like the guarding of intellectual property like hurts the world, and then how much more amazing things can be done when people collaborate and work together and still get the recognition for what they've done. I think what could be better is if there was a way of monetizing that a bit better for the people that contribute. Yeah, I think you're getting some of that with other services. But yeah, the fact that open source, it's the open sourcing of ideas. It's the dissemination of information that you've you know, sponged up, and you're like, I have to let people know. I feel like it's like almost like the preach thing. It's like, I need to let people, I feel like I should go and stand on a corner and be like, yo, you need to learn about Bitcoin, and, you know, stand next to one of the people or whatever and just be like, yo, Bitcoin, don't forget about that message, Bitcoin. So any other conferences you're going this year?
I was in, was it CC Forum a couple of days or a couple of weeks ago in London. Interesting to see.
Frontline, what was that like?
to be honest, I did actually have a little chat with Craig, Mr. CSW, Craig Satoshi, right? This guy is just a crazy character, to be honest. I mean, I heard today that he's withdrawn his court filings. The fact that he's claiming around to try to be Satoshi and obviously shilling his BSV projects, for me, is not really the best place for me. But I think a few people kind of put him in his place, Tone Vays and stuff on stage. But the other best thing I saw there was Dr. Doom, Nura Rabini.
Yeah.
You can maybe check it out online, but I did do a bit of a wrap up with him, the debate he had with him and Roger Ver.
Yeah.
I spoke to Roger after the debate, and when I went to actually speak to Mr. Rabini, he said, sorry, I got no time for you, got a plane to catch. But he was pretty much heckled off stage. And, his message that he basically said, there's nothing wrong with the fiat system. There's nothing wrong with negative interest rates. There's nothing wrong with money printing. There's nothing wrong with quantitative easing.
Oh, the shit people say to protect their bags.
It is crazy. And, just a couple of weeks ago, the New York Fed printed over $250 billion worth of crypto. $250 billion worth of fiat just overnight, just to protect the liquidity of the rates. And, that is less than the market cap of Bitcoin today. So, never underestimate how small, how early adopter this phase is.
So what you mean is they minted 17 million Bitcoin worth of fiat.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a great website which you should check out called fiatmarketcap.com.
Yeah.
You can see the market cap of all national state cryptocurrencies in Bitcoin, which is obviously, in my mind, the only true digitally scarce asset in the world today. So, we'll see where this thing's going. But no, it's absolutely interesting. But I don't know, do you check out the 21 is not enough guy, his little lightning ATM? I don't know if you got that.
Is that the one over the cardboard box?
Yes.
I've had a look. He wasn't there when I went over, so I want to see it. So you literally put in pennies and you get Satoshis.
Yeah, it's great. The
Nice.
best thing is you actually, I think I saw him put a pound coin in the machine, and it comes up, it was like 12,000 Satoshis or something like that. He had his blue wallet in his hand and he scanned it across and it sent and received instantly. And, I remember back in 2013, 14, it was quite maybe expensive. Well, back then it probably wasn't expensive to send Bitcoin transaction, but certainly slow, 10 minutes. And when you're showing it to other people, you can't do that. But with the Lightning Network as it is today, you can literally send one Satoshi across the network.
Yeah. Instant
confirmations.
Yeah, or you can also do that with Bitcoin ABC. Joking. No, Lightning is incredible, isn't it? It just the only thing for me, I think, it has its minor faults. I think it's a very, very rapidly evolving layer, and I think that it's got so much to offer, and it's going to be like the internet, where it's like, oh, we can use it for this and that. Like David Bowie, like in the 90s, it's like, oh, the internet's like an alien. It's going to do all sorts of crazy ass stuff. Yeah. And like Lightning networks, all these, different other systems we're building on top of Bitcoin, and we're using it as not just a transfer of money and a store of value, but like using it as a protocol, using it as a security protocol, using it as the most secure blockchain on earth. So when you secure other stuff, timestamp it, all these like other crazy ideas that are slowly sort of building out. And I love Lightning. I think I did say that the novel rap, that's all Lightning. Yeah. Lightning. What's the word? Inspired. Are there any other technologies, Bitcoin related, like in terms of side chains, anything like that you're also looking into?
I actually spoke a couple of weeks ago. I had an exclusive interview with Samson Mao. So I met him in London while he was on this bit of a global tour he's on. And he was talking to me a little bit about the Liquid network and BTC backed side chain. So I think this is a new kind of area. For me, Bitcoin is a scarce asset. And when you do pegged side chains into the network, you can have token sales, you can do things all on top of Bitcoin, essentially, or with Bitcoin as your reserve backing. So I think that's a really interesting kind of area. I know RSK are doing other things in this space as well. I mean, I must admit to you, I'm kind of a open blockchain guy. So, I'm not adverse to Ethereum and these other cryptocurrencies as well. I do always think, I always go back to the Ethereum white paper, and it always said that their aim was to make unstoppable code. I really do hope they kind of deliver on that mission, and if they,
they can stop it from locking up 150 million in the DAO.
Things like the DAO, I think, are an interesting learning curve event. And it was before I actually got involved in Bitcoin, but Bitcoin had his own little inflation bug back. I think it was a year and a half into its code when, for a couple of milliseconds or a couple of minutes, too many Bitcoins were kind of printed, but people managed to figure out that code, and we got back to the right chain. The chain dynamic splitting. But I think these are learning events, and I personally don't think that Ethereum would be able to hard fork the way it did back in 2015 today. And they've built an amount of scale at the moment, and for me, it's another open public blockchain. And I'm interested to see what sort of dApps can be delivered on this, and if. But I'm also interested in kind of like laps as well today. But
Laps. Lightning
apps. I don't know if you've ever used any laps.
Satoshi's Place.
Satoshi's Place,
yeah, did lots of writing and stuff on there.
Yeah. There's a great one there. There's a little lightning roulette.
Roulette. No, that's cool.
Play that. It's that was my first experience ever with a Lightning network. I loaded up a Blue wallet. I put a couple of Satoshis on there. I sent one Satoshi over to Lightning Roulette. Didn't need to create an email account, nothing like that. Made a bet on red or black, so I put it on red. Spun the wheel, won it back, won 2 Satoshis, and sent that 2 Satoshis back to me. But the most incredible thing when I did that was I managed to with sending a very small amount of Bitcoin on the Lightning network, to send 1 Satoshi's worth over to a server. They confirmed they received it. They took a bet. They took my bet and they won the bet, and then I paid it back to me. And I always tell people how small a value 1 Satoshi is. So I've got this great anecdote I must share with you. So commercial price of sand is $30 a ton, right? So imagine just sitting over there in that corner, you see a whole ton of sand, pretty heavy, pretty big quantity of sand. If you go over there and you pick up 10 grains of that sand, that is the value of 1 Satoshi.
Wow.
And imagine you can now, through the Lightning Network, instantly send that across to somebody on the other side of the world, and they can confirm receipt.
Why haven't we been able to send 10 grains of sand over the other side of the world?
I know.
Like teleporting. Like, when is it? No, but it's absolutely incredible. Like the fact that it's, people go, there's a lot of misconceptions about Bitcoin. And people think that obviously for layer 1, it is a bit slow, it is a bit like, you've got to be careful and not take risk if you want a Lambo versus if you're going to have a coffee or whatever. But Lightning Network, boom, straight away, you've got, instant payments, you've got, ridiculously low fees. You've got side chains now where, and Adam back, I think he tweeted a while back about the fact that he thinks that shitcoins will move on to Bitcoin side chains, because why have a chain that can be hacked, when you can have the most secure in the world, and have your shitcoin and eat it, like cake and eat it or whatever, I just, there's so many cool emerging technologies. And there's the thing that Mad Bitcoin said to me a while back was that he envisages a day where there's like layers, there's lightning layers on top of lightning. It will get to that stage, and that's a really cool kind of idea. I just think that it's such an amazing like tree where all these different things can branch off, these new technologies, new ways of doing things.
All open source,
all open source,
all open access, all unstoppable. That's very much the story of Lightning. When there was 3 distinct teams who built their own protocols, and they all came together, they all worked together. It's obviously now being implemented today with a network of hundreds of wallets almost coming online. Different things like BTC Pay Server, which we saw some demos of downstairs. But many years ago there was this dream of Bitcoin becoming a payment network and a medium exchange. I think with Lightning, that's slowly starting to happen.
Yeah.
It's only a year and a half old. I just think, where was Bitcoin a year and a half old?
Yeah.
And, Lightning, there's, for me, the smartest minds in the world working on this project. And you know what? They're working on it for free. They're working on it because it's their passion. And people don't do these for other companies. People don't do things. They will do it for Bitcoin though, and it's an exciting space.
They work hard. I think that's true, isn't it? You work harder when there's passion behind it than when you're just getting the money. I mean, the money, you're like, oh yeah, I'm getting money for doing this stuff. That's great. I finish at 5 and then that's it. But like the passion is, I'm up until 4 a.m. learning this. Like, I won't stop until I've learned X, Y, and Z. Yeah, I think that since I started testing Bitcoin sidechains for a company, specifically Commerce Block, and as soon as I started delving into, which I hadn't done before, Python, and I just like, I've got to learn this. I've got to learn Python. I've got to learn Linux. And and now I'm just slowly leveling up and like trying to build. But it wasn't like money that motivated me, because it was the wanting to learn, it's wanting to absorb information, be able to tell other people and shout about it from the rooftops that this is cool and it does this and Y and X, Y, and Z. Yeah, I just think it's such a cool thing. And in quoting one of my raps, open source, it's Satoshi way. Yeah. So this year you said as you went to Honey Badger and CC4. Was you Honey Badger?
No, I didn't go, but
Oh,
I'm maybe planning on going on a future occasion. I had, there's so many great speakers actually. Adam Back was there. There was Peter Todd was there. A lot of cool developers and things. Yeah, not a lot of interest. That's what you say yourself, or?
Oh yeah, no, I just wanted to all trying to do as many as possible. So, Honey Badger, and then a couple of weeks, and then Riga. No. HCPP Prague, then Transylvania, and then this one, and then tomorrow I'm flying out to Malta for the AI blockchain summit.
Sounds fun.
It's going to be so apparently, they got old CSW there. It's going to be doing his thing, like speaking about what's he even speak about now? Like how do you? I don't mean this in a bad way because he kind of brings it on himself. I mean, anyone could argue that it probably isn't people being nasty in general. He may be inciting them through various things, like the F word.
Did you see his Halloween message?
No.
Just a few days ago.
Was it something like stupid?
With the pumpkin head. It was frankly weird, to be honest.
Oh, what's this? Because I think his parents are pumpkin farmers or something like that.
Was it? I'm not sure what the connection was with his past, but it was.
No, you can't.
It was.
It was the word he says.
Yeah, it was tweeted out by CoinGeek. This pro Bitcoin SV or
Calvinez
little media company.
BSV.
Yeah, it's quite weird when you read articles on there. They always say they talk about Bitcoin, but they really mean Bitcoin SV, and it's just fucking confusing, to be honest. But it's his Halloween message was just weird. But he named this pumpkin called Pumpkinhead, and then he said that Pumpkinhead's going to eat all the BTC. So I'm not sure exactly what's whether it's a bad address.
That's because he recently waffled on about he had some hissy fit in a forum and said that he was going to in 2020 he's going to kill Bitcoin and no one knows and there's underlying security issues and that's the reason why no one's developed on BSV for 6 months because they don't want to tell everyone what's been fixed that Bitcoin has missed and Bitcoin ABC has. So unfortunately everyone, Craig Wright is going to kill Bitcoin next year. Which is very unfortunate. I'm sure it will happen. And it's around about the time that in fact, I'm not sure how the dynamics of it works. I'm not sure if it's before or after he stands out in the rain, like in Back to Future, waiting for someone to give him the private key to get to the 1 million Bitcoin. I'm not sure. Maybe he can put it in a timetable. Maybe he can write it on a pumpkin. I don't know. But he's an interesting character. And you interviewed for Decrypt Media. So,
to be honest, I just had a chat with him. I didn't publish. I don't think anything he said was really noteworthy. I tried to ask him about his mining operation. So I think they have close to maybe like 1 exahash, which is about 100th of the Bitcoin network at the moment. So in my mind, it's just simply not enough to really protect consensus around their chain. There's a great website which I've been watching called coinmarketbook.cc.
CoinMarketBook, yeah.
Give it a shout out. But basically what they do is they look at what is the value of the order books protecting the value of Bitcoin.
Ooh.
And Bitcoin actually has $350 million worth of liquidity. So that's basically $350 million worth of, I'm talking about big exchanges like BitMEX, Finex, Binance, people sitting there waiting to buy the dip. And some people say that this is a relative measure of the asset. Now, if you compare that to BSV, I think it's only a couple of million, which means if you had a couple of million, BSV claims to have a market cap of about 2.5 billion.
Yeah.
But I think that's poorly protected, and I'm not. I can't really see it holding that, to be honest.
The only thing is though about this is that we all know 51% attack, hardcore. It doesn't quite kill a coin because Verge somehow survived like multiple. I always have survived it. It's still going, still being used for Pornhub. But the thing that I don't get is if it's so easy to 51% attack, why doesn't like F2 Paul or someone like that just be like Bitcoin SV,
I think that you have to imagine there's this hardware. You either point it at BSV or you point it at Bitcoin, and At the moment, it's just too profitable for them to point at Bitcoin. I mean, Bitcoin hash rate has been on a bull run for the last 7-8 months, so, close to 100 exahash at the moment, and for me, this is a great sign of people who invest in hardware, investing for the long term, and they can see long-term value here. We just crossed 18 million Bitcoins mined, so there's only 3 million of those left. And
1 million's technically gone. Well, they reckon 4 million, don't they? Altogether is lost in some way. I can't imagine the amount that's in dead faucets and stuff.
Yeah, but Bitcoin it's a scarce digital asset, and the figure I always like to give is there's about 25 to 30 million dollar-based millionaires around in the world today. They can't all divest 1% of their funds and buy Bitcoin because it's there's not enough Bitcoins exist for that.
Interesting, yeah. When you think about it like that, it's very interesting. And but not the millionaires couldn't have one Bitcoin.
They couldn't divest 1% of their funds.
Oh, sorry, 1% of their funds. Sorry,
because they'd have to divest 10 grand because they're a dollar-based millionaires, right?
Yeah.
But
which is roughly one Bitcoin.
Yeah. So Bitcoin are only, I think, 150, 160 billion market cap at the moment. Gold for me is the next big target, 7 trillion market cap. It does everything that gold does, but better because the hard limit is very much secure. It's digitally transferable. It's scarce. It's protected by this network of nodes. It's protected by this hashing network. It's not gone down in 10.5 years. So I think long-term fundamentals for Bitcoin. I'm a big fan of the Plan B's stock to flow ratio. I don't know if you've seen that.
Yeah.
I mean, what are your own thoughts on the stock to flow ratio?
Well, I don't know the maths behind it, but it sounds kind of logical. I think was it Safety as well that put that in Bitcoin standard, and it kind of makes sense. But at the same time, the market dynamics are so difficult for Bitcoin because it's such an emotional system and it's emotionally driven, and small bits of news can send something in another direction, whether it alters it, of course, or good or not. But I don't know. I think it's Plan B's very much got his head switched on. It looks like we're entering the blue phase. Is it that chart where it's like blue, and we're seeming like it's approaching the halvening. I hope it's true. I hope it's on the approach to May, it smashes it, and then and infinity and beyond. But Plan B does some very good content. Yeah, I
think trading in Bitcoin is actually picking up a lot this year. You're seeing, for me, it's quite interesting how Binance have launched their own futures contract. Just recently, they crossed $1 billion a day worth of trading volume, and that contract is only about 50 days old, 45, 50 days old. And, they're already eating into the market share of BitMEX and Huobi and other few big futures derivative exchanges. I think at the moment, BitMEX do provide a lot of the use case of speculation for Bitcoin at the moment. They cross $10, $12 billion a day of trading as a record. But I think competition is only a good thing. And, I think other derivative operations, especially in the US, have backed. I think they've only just started to pick up. I think they crossed 1,000 Bitcoin a day. But Trace Mayer, a couple of weeks ago, he said that he could see that contract hitting 20,000 Bitcoins a day traded. And, there's, I think Bitcoin's new biggest advocate is Jack Dorsey as well at the moment of Twitter. I mean, I'm not sure what you think. Do you know much about his project?
Yeah. So I think it's really good what he's done. He's hired Macroeconomics, hasn't he? And he's got kind of a small ninja team of I think they were hiking through the desert or something like that. Yeah. But I think it's awesome. He's a very big proponent. I think he's invested heavily in Lightning as well, or he's invested in Lightning companies. Sorry, and I think that having anyone who's in a position of authority and not just appeal to authority, because obviously that's a fallacy, logical fallacy. But he's someone who's listened to. He's someone who's built one of the biggest news bite information sites in the world, or the biggest, and he's someone who's massively behind it and saying, look, I've made my wealth from the internet, and the internet needs Bitcoin. And I think that resonates with people. That really gives it a bit of legitimacy.
Yeah, especially as opposed to Facebook and Libra kind of doing their own kind of seemingly centralized type projects. I know they have a plan to become distributed and decentralized, but I think proof's kind of in the pudding, and until it happens, I'm much more a fan of the other open public blockchains, at least proof of work based at the moment. I think those are the most more exciting projects.
I think I go through waves, to be honest. Like every day is a new opinion. I think ultimately, if I was to ask myself, would Libra be better for people than what is currently available? And I think it's a yes. It's not as good. It's obviously categorically blah blah blah. Nothing to do. Nothing as good as Bitcoin. Bitcoin's the best. All those caveats. But is it better than what's currently there? Yes. Then cool, go for it. Bitcoin's going to win anyway. I don't give a shit. Bitcoin's going to win whatever comes out. Ethereum 3.0, Bitcoin's still going to win. But so if Libra's out there doing whatever and also help people are getting educated, I think it can be a good thing. I don't know.
Competition is never a bad thing, I think.
Yeah.
And everyone's free to compete. I think that's part of the philosophy of Bitcoin itself.
Yeah.
If you want to use it, you can. If you don't want to use it, you want to use something else, you can. And but if you want to use a centralized, unlimited printing fiat system, then you can go and use that as well. But that's not my cup of tea, to be honest. So
exactly. I don't like the volatility of fiat as well compared to against Bitcoin. Fiat goes up and down against Bitcoin, but Bitcoin just stays one Bitcoin is one Bitcoin, and it's crazy, isn't it? And was it 250? You're saying 250 billion. The ECB, that was the US government printing. And the ECB, they're going to do quantitative easing again. I haven't really been keeping up with them.
Yeah. So I saw some statistics on Mario Draghi. He's obviously just finished off his role as the head of the ECB, but under his stewardship, I don't know how many trillions they printed out and things. But like governments around the world, they're just on money printing machines, to be honest. But for me, the thing which enrages me the most is that I feel like they're doing the money printing, but they're giving it straight to the very richest and the banks and the corporations, not the people. I'm a big fan of a chap in the States called Andrew Yang. I'm not sure if you know him.
Yeah.
Part of the Yang Gang.
Yang Gang, yeah.
Yeah, Yang Gang. But his policy is really about giving $1,000 a month to every
universal basic income.
Universal basic income. And one of the things taglines he always says is, when they made the decision back in 2008 to bail out the banks for $4 trillion, nobody was running around going, where are we going to get the money from? How are we going to pay for it? They just did it. They found the money overnight. So if they can't do that, I'm a big fan of smaller governments, and I'm a big fan of, if you're going to, there's no people better to spend your money, to be able to work out how to spend your money yourself than the people, rather than big government programs. So I'm hoping things like this. So big out the Yang Gang, and
just very good point you say that about it suddenly only just occurred to me then when you said when they needed to bail out the banks, they just pulled the money out of their asses, and you're like, whoa, like there's like war. Well, okay, no, obviously they pulled money out of their asses to create war, but there's like famine and shit and like people dying and stuff, and why can't we where's the money out of the ass? Let's get some money, get your asses and get the money out of the ass. And like it's like the same with the what's it, not the Mont Saint Michel, the what's the Notre Dame. Yeah, they're like 300 million.
All the donations.
Yeah, that's
to be honest, I think that had way more to do with the tax write-off for billionaires and things like that.
Do you think? Yeah.
But the
charity's a tax write-off, isn't it?
Yeah, the current monetary system is so incoherent at the moment. I think there's one set of rules for corporations. Yeah. And one of the good things, I was actually speaking to the chaps here from the Isle of Man who are here. They're attracting new businesses and crypto projects and Bitcoin-based projects to come over there. And I think an interesting thing that's happening is this regulatory, sorry, I can't think of the right word here. So regulatory arbitrage, which is happening, which is basically like what actually happened with the corporations maybe about 10 years ago is you had all these Apple and Amazon and all these big companies. They were thinking, right, where do we set up headquarters? So they go over to Switzerland and say, what tax rate will you offer us? Oh, it'll be 5% or whatever. Oh, let me go over to Ireland. Oh, you're going to give me 0? Okay, I'll place my head office there. And they played these countries against off each other to get the lowest tax rates they can. And actually, that's happening now for crypto at the moment. So you've got this crypto regulatory arbitrage playing out, where if you don't like, you can essentially go jurisdiction shopping. And as long as you're willing to provide jobs and, base some funds and help the economic growth of these small island nations like Malta and Isle of Man and Seychelles, and Bermuda, they're willing to open up the arms and come there. And, the SEC and these other powerhouse so-called regulators, they should be worrying about, jobs and the growth moving away from them to other places. So hopefully it will cause them to step up their game. But I think it's a fascinating concept, this regulatory arbitrage, and I think crypto is really make a lot of case from it.
I think it is a shame how, like, you know, you think about how many people have probably been put in prison because of tax evasion who are like earning under 50k compared to how many have been, I was going to use the MF word then, but I restrained, which is really good. The last time I restrained from swearing was when I was at Stonehenge, and I almost swore at the security guard when I had my Bitcoin flag and he wanted to take it away, but I went, and then I almost swore, and he went, "You almost swore at me," and I was like, "Yeah, I almost swore. That wasn't that good. I showed restraint. Sorry, just constraint. Sorry. So what was I going to? The fact that the companies can negotiate. Like, it's like someone goes to court, they're not going to negotiate. It's like, yo, you pay this bill, or you're just, that's it, screwed. You're going to go in jail. Sorry, time out. Whereas a corporation, no one's heads rolls. Like, you can finger point enough so that you, like, I don't know, like, the responsibility acts like a Tor network where no one's responsible. No one's responsible. No one's responsible. Yeah, and that's what really bugs me about the system. And you kind of think, well, in terms of the taxing system, why don't we just have the flat rules, and then people can go and choose without this negotiation, without countries playing off against each other, you know? And it was like 3 years ago that Google, they obviously based in Ireland, of course, and they made, I think, something like $5.2 billion of revenue in the UK, but they what do you call it? They invoiced $5.4 billion by, like, Google Ireland. So basically, they lost 200 million or something. It was something stupid like that.
Yeah.
You know? You're like, come on. And people saying, oh, you've got to jump down on these guys because, you know, it's ridiculous. We're losing the money, which we are. And the argument is, well, they're going to go elsewhere. And like, well, they might go elsewhere, but then they'll lose 5 billion of revenue from the UK. Like, so, like, do you think that they're going to go, oh, well, let's try and set up somewhere else, but then not have the UK as a market? You know, I don't know.
It's a crazy system at the moment. You know, I always think that for the very wealthy and the big corporations, tax is something, it's an optional thing whether they want to pay or not. And, you know, all they really need is to be able to pay the accountancy fees, the lawyer fees in another country, which is a bit of a tax haven.
Yeah.
Who are looking for the jobs, who are looking for the business. And, you know, you can go and set yourself up there and you can do that. And, you know, for me, the future of taxation has to be a VAT tax. You know, that's a consumption-based tax is the only thing which I think is kind of fair.
Yeah.
And it's a system that can kind of work. So, you know, that's kind of the only tax that I'm kind of in favor of. But as I said, I also think that government's responsibility should be to give things back to the people. I think things like a UBI and things like that are massively important things. And for me, this is the future where I see the role of governments kind of looking after the people rather than looking after the elite in the society, because that's not really the society falls at the moment.
And I think, you know, people go on about the death spiral of, you know, the mining death spiral, which obviously didn't happen because that's dumb as fuck. Pardon me. Oh, God. There you go. It's ruined it now. Swore. Explicit material. But there's the mining death spiral. There seems to be